This portion of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is presented by Clamp Tight. For road racing and sports car fans in the Northeast, Lime Rock Park, Connecticut is a mecca for motorsports fun. And every year, as the leaves start to change, the track hosts one of its signature events, the Lime Rock Historic Festival, now celebrating its 35th year. Hi everybody, and welcome to Lime Rock Park Historic Festival 35. I'm Bill Stevens here at this beautiful racetrack in Western Connecticut, Lime Rock Park. A racetrack that is steeped in history and tradition. And every year that history and tradition is magnified at this event, where some of the most desirable and beautiful race cars and historic cars ever built are assembled in one place. We've got a lot of people to talk to and a lot of action to show you, so let's get underway. Race Group 1 is for road-going sports cars, and one of the cars in this category with a world-class pedigree is a Lancia D24 driven by Peter Giddings. It's one of the two cars Peter is driving this weekend. The other is an Alfa Romeo Grand Prix car from the 30s.
The Lancia is fairly new to me. I've had it for 2 years, but we spent 2 years fixing the engine. It's one of the classic Jarno design, the Tipo C. So if you will, we have the two bookends of Jarno's career. We have the Alfa and the Monza before it, and then we have the D24. These cars were built for long, grueling races, like the Mexican road races, for example. Fangio did particularly well in those races.
The dominant car in Group 1 was the Austin Healey driven by Rich Malumian Jr. with wins in each of the 4 races. Peter Giddings' other ride, an Alfa Romeo Tipo C8C35 Grand Prix car, was the dominant car in Group 7, winning 3 of the 4 races. Also competing in that category was an American race car with its roots in the dirt tracks and bull rings of the 30s.
It's a 1937 Ford flathead powered sprint car, V8 flathead, originally raced on dirt back in the day, and it turns left very well.
So, how would Earl sum up, in one word, the mechanical side of his sprint car?
Primitive. Very, very, very primitive. Basically, I've got an oil pressure gauge, a water temperature gauge, and a fuel pressure gauge from back in the day when the external pump was used. Handbrake or rear brakes on the outside, rear brakes only. It leaves a lot to be desired on a road course, but we're working with it.
The only car to prevent Peter Giddings from sweeping Group 7 was another Alfa Romeo, a 1933 8C 2600 Monza driven by Peter Greenfield. On the track, we've covered the racing spectrum from Grand Prix cars to sprint cars. But in the paddock was a display of 5 incredible machines from other types of competition.
My interest is really in performance cars and race cars. If there was a common theme, and specifically Le Mans. One of the fun parts about the Cunningham Corvette is that Mike Pillsbury, who was a Corvette historian, found the car in a junkyard, but was buying it because of the Hallebrand knockoffs. He had no idea that it was one of the very rare Cunningham Corvettes. And then after they discovered that it was a Cunningham Corvette, Briggs Cunningham was still alive, and he introduced him to Frank Burrell, and Frank Burrell had the original seats, the original dash, so all the parts on the Corvette are original. With regard to the Cobra, when I found the Cobra, I found it in France, but I just couldn't believe I'd come across CSX 2001, which is basically the first production car, which started right back on the East Coast at Ed Hugis's shop. The big one is a Bentley, and again, it has some Le Mans connection in the fact that Bentley ruled Le Mans in the late 20s, just dominated. And they had these big 4.5 liter and 6 liter Bentleys. So to find an original bodied 4.5 Van den Plas like we have here is a real rare item. The two hot rods we brought we thought were really seminal hot rods. The black one is the Doane Spencer Roadster, and this is one that was the very first winner of Pebble Beach. The one next to it is the Pearson Brothers Coupe. It's hard to imagine that car in 1950 when, you know, a lot of the hot rods were still kind of primered and beat up. That car is exactly how it was. It was chromed, it was painted. It's just a really significant car.
Whether in a display tent or on the track, historic racing cars are supposed to be as period correct as possible. And that extends to even the smallest parts, such as hose clamps.
There's definitely plenty of clamps out there on the market. I mean, you're talking about vintage clamps from back in the 60s, 70s, or even earlier than that. So, and then they tried to improve on them, and of course, those don't work either. You get a lot of flat spots with these. You start torquing down on this and you're pushing a flat, oil, fuel, water, anything's gonna find a way out of there. What we've done is we've actually created a tool that makes hose clamps out of wire. It's 10 times stronger and 90% lighter. What's great too is it's a 360-degree seal, and it's a custom clamp because you're making it yourself. If you are working on a vintage build or a restoration project, you're gonna be judged on it, or you just want the nice aesthetics from that, you know, time when it was actually built, this clamp will go right over top of ours as well. So you can have the aesthetics you're looking for, but you know that it's being held properly underneath. The other great thing about it too is if you are working with possibly heat shrinks or Gates clamps, they'll go right over top of ours too. So you have the nice slick look under the hood, and it always looks great.
Stay with us for more of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35. When we come back, we'll have a conversation with the event's honored guest, Richard Atwood.
The Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is being brought to you by the DJS Universal Dolly, the best mobile car dolly built today. BBS of America, technology through motorsports. Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. And by US Restoration, your dream, our passion done right.
This portion of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is presented by BBS of America. Welcome back to Lime Rock Historic Festival 35. This gentleman right here is going to be familiar to anybody who remembers the golden age of long-distance endurance racing. It's Richard Atwood. Great to see you here at the event. And you're getting a chance to run some laps in the Ford GT this weekend.
Yes, Barry Smith got me here, and he organized a drive, a lovely drive, Miles Collier's car, who's here, and his brother, to see it.
Group 9 is nicknamed Kent's Domain in honor of longtime vintage racer Kent Bain, whose 1965 Triumph Spitfire has quite a history.
This car has been an SCCA car all of its life. It never really hit the street, but I've had it for nearly 20 years, so this Spitfire and I are almost one. And Lime Rock is one of those tracks that is an equalizer. It has the ability to let you get that momentum as long as you don't get stuck behind a slow in the corners, fast down the straights car for too long a period of time, and really come to grips with the car and getting it absolutely strung out every corner you can to keep that pace up and keep down. It's a challenging track. For a track with only one left-hand turn, it gives up very little. You're having as much fun as you can, going as slow as possible.
Taking a look at the results of Group 9, it was another Spitfire driven by David Gussack that took a pair of race wins, while honored guest Richard Atwood prevailed in the other two races. Well, the Group 3 category has a nickname, Tin Top Dreams. They're racing sedans. Boy, there's a lot of variety in this class. Those old Datsun 510s and the Alfa Romeo GTVs. And how about this, a 1966 Ford Anglia Super that's driven by one of the real veterans in this category, or shall I say, one of the wizards.
We have a number of tin tops. I have the Ford Anglia. I have 3 of the Lotus Cortinas. We have 3 Escort Mark 1s and a Cologne Capri. I got this Ford off of a used car lot, turned it into a race car. I went SCCA racing. car is heavy, doesn't have a lot of power, so it really likes to have a flowing sort of a control, and this is a great flowing track. It makes it a lot of fun. What are we going to earn out of this? You know, dollars and cents? The only thing we're doing is spending money. And if you're going to have a good time spending your money, then this is the place to be.
The top of the tin tops in Group 3 was a 1970 Datsun 240Z driven by Jake Clapp, who scored 3 race wins, with Scott Hughes and his 1972 BMW CSL winning race 4. That famous BMW, nicknamed the Batmobile, was instrumental in the launch of BBS, a company that has grown into a world leader in wheel design and technology.
The CSL was a unique car. Back at that time, BBS also was doing fiberglass work. So we not only made the wheels for those cars, we also made the fenders, the wings, front spoiler, all of that. So that was really our big launch, was with that car. We still do things with BMW today on their racing cars, but Porsche, they're our biggest OEM customer, and we also do good amount of race products for them. This is a very competitive market. This year we brought several new things, some forged 2-piece wheels, forged 1-piece wheels, and a forged magnesium wheel out of the motorsports department, as well as a new cast flow formed wheel out of our German company. A lot of new things, but different levels of technology, different levels of price point for different segments of the market. BBS's tagline is Technique aus dem Motorsport, meaning technology through motorsport, and that's true still today.
Coming up on the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35, we'll check out a competitor who drives one of the smallest open-wheel cars and one of the hairiest sports racers here today. Stay with us. This portion of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is presented by DJS Fabrication. Welcome back to Lime Rock Park and the Historic Festival 35. Our next group is a potent mixture of open-wheel and purpose-built sports racing machines. Sports car racers call it Formula Libre. And when you put such variety on a tight track like Lime Rock, it's pure excitement. One of the fastest cars here today is driven by Bill Gellis.
I bought my Chevron about 5 years ago. It's the B31, used in the European Manufacturing Championship in 1975. It's got a 420R hot, fuel-injected, mechanical fuel injection, about 325 horsepower, and the car weighs about 1,300 pounds.
It was a pair of open-wheel formula cars that took the trophies in Group 8, with Rick Bell's Ralt RT1 and Ben Sinnott's Lola topping the podium. Bill Gellis was not only racing his Chevron in Group 8, but also driving a Formula Junior with a significant history in Group 2.
The Stanguellini is an interesting car. It was ex-Walt Hens, and it was owned by Cunningham and Momo. It won the 1959 Sebring race as part of the Formula One weekend at Sebring.
In Group 2, the best of the front-engine Formula Juniors was the Malak MK2 driven by Ray Malak, who swept all 4 races. There's a second class for rear-engine Formula Juniors competing here this weekend as well, and many of them are taking part in a 2-year tour around the globe.
Well, the Formula Junior World Tour really started last year. We picked it up in this year, or at the end of last year, in Australia. And then the cars all went to New Zealand, and then the cars are packed away and they came here. We did Indianapolis, Mosport in Canada, and Mid-Ohio, and we came back at the end of August, and we're doing Lime Rock here, Watkins Glen next week, and Elkhart Lake or Road America the week after.
Both David and Lance are driving extremely rare 1962 Lynx Mark III low-line chassis.
This particular model, there was only 7 made, and made in Sydney. One of the unique features is the styling. It's got quite a long, slender nose on it, and very streamlined, a very pretty body shape, and very low and sleek. That's the low-line name comes out there.
My particular car was literally a box of rusty bits with a very twisted and rusty chassis. Yeah, pretty much a new car. We used what we could off the old car, of course. We kept as much as we could because of the history of the car.
There are nearly 50 Formula Juniors here at Lime Rock, and their small engines and narrow tires make them fun to watch and drive.
The racing is really close. I mean, really close. You know, there are 4 or 5 of us within a second on lap times, and it makes for exceedingly good fun.
One of the Aussie World Tour competitors, Martin Bullock, drove his 1963 Lotus 27 to a pair of wins in Group 6. And American Joe Colasacco took the other 2 races in his Stangalini Delfino. It's not unusual for many cars to be squeezed into tight spaces at the track or in the shop. But there is a solution for playing Tetris with your automotive toys.
What we have, our main product is a universal dolly that we call. It's really made to be able to move a vehicle around that you're either building or working on. We have a frame saddle, so you can put it on the frame, build it from there. We also have a hub adapter and a pinch weld adapter. So we have a few different ways to be able to attach it to a vehicle as you're working on it or as you're building something. It's a big 6x2-inch wheel. Each wheel's rated at 1,000 pounds. They're built so they'll go through some gravel or on the asphalt. You don't have to have a perfectly smooth floor. So they're really made to go anywhere that you need to go. One of our biggest sellers is a parts rack. And that's basically, as you're working on the car, maybe there's something you got to replace, you can take it, put it on that rack, wait for the new part to come in. But it's a nice spot to keep everything organized as you're taking things off, putting things back on. Just try and make it a little easier so you're not losing parts or anything goes missing.
Stay tuned for more of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35, because when we come back, we'll check out a home-built special that was designed by a high school student back in the 1950s.
The Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is being brought to you by the DJS Universal Dolly, the best mobile car dolly built today. BBS of America, technology through motorsports. Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. And by Brand New Muscle Car, building yesterday's dream cars today.
This portion of the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35 is presented by Brand New Muscle Car. Welcome back to Lime Rock. We've had beautiful weather for most of the event, and the parking areas are packed with your typical mixed bag of sports cars. And the hillsides are filled with fans enjoying the sights and sounds. The only minor blot on the event was rain that dampened, but did not delay the Sunday morning auction and the Trackside Concours Car Show. By the next day, the sun was back, along with the racing. In Group 4 is a unique race car that was the first one ever built by a man who went on to be an innovative privateer in both open wheel and Can-Am racing.
Ino De Pasquale, who's the guy that built and designed the car, built this right after high school. So, and it's the first car that he actually built, and then he took it out and raced it. So that's, the kind of thing that people in high school dream about doing, and this guy really did it. I've seen it over the years, and I always thought it was really interesting, almost like a cartoon car or something, a mixture of all sorts of things. You see some Maserati, birdcage in it, some Chevrolets. It has all these things, and when I spoke to Eno about it, it was really fun to hear some of the things that he based it on. It's very powerful, actually. It's not the power that it's lacking, it's the brakes and the handling that are a little bit. It really takes you have to pay attention constantly. You can't relax, yeah.
In the Group 4 races, Tom Grudovich captured race 1 in his Ginetta G4, but the Lotuses of Craig Chima, Graham Edelman, and Dave Handy prevailed in the other 3 contests. What a pleasure it is to be standing next to this gentleman, a racer of great renown, but more importantly, the owner of Lime Rock Park. It is Skip Barber. And Skip, I know this is an event that you really love.
It's my favorite event of the year, no question. Starting with the local parade of the race cars Thursday night. There's something going on all the time, but it's all from or at the track.
What have you got planned for Lime Rock Park in the future?
We're continuing to improve spectator areas. And we're making it easy for everybody, but having it not change. You know, the great thing is when somebody comes who says, boy, I haven't been here for 25 years. This hasn't changed at all. And I think, hey, you're standing on Earth that's 10 feet higher than it used to be, and you can see twice as far as, well, whatever. More of that.
Our next category is Group 5 for the big bore Grand Touring cars, lovingly known as Skip's Nightmare. One of the top cars in the class is the Porsche driven by Jim Hamblin.
I started in PCA, Porsche Club Racing, back in the late 80s. I've been racing Porsche Club and Vintage since that time. And racing with these guys, racing SBRA, it's just the kind of racing I enjoy at this point. I made it a 2.5 liter, an ST replica, which was Porsche's second factory race car configuration. Great for a little car, it's kind of a giant killer. I'm up against a lot of big displacement cars in Group 5. It actually makes the racing fun. I'm fast where they're slow, and they're slow where I'm fast. So it makes great, tight racing. It's just a great little package.
Jim's 911 managed wins in 3 of the 4 races. Only Jack Bush's Jaguar prevented a clean sweep. Many of the GT cars in Group 5 have muscle cars in their DNA. And some of the classic cars of the 60s and 70s are poised for a comeback.
You know, the 60s and 70s were a great time for race cars. And they were an even better time for street cars, in my opinion. In a brand new muscle car, what we're trying to do is bring that back by building these classic cars from scratch and offering them to customers with their choice of modern upgrades. So what we can build at brand new muscle cars, we could build first generation Camaros, first generation Mustang, Chevelle, Bronco, Nova, Bel Air, about a dozen bodies from scratch, and build an all new muscle car and let the customer design it and we build it. And they can have old stuff, new stuff, modern suspension, modern wheels and tires, disc brakes, everything they would want on a modern car, except it has that classic style. We'd love to help you build your dream car today.
So that throws the checkered flag in the Lime Rock Historic Festival 35. We hope you enjoyed the cars and characters that make up this unique event, and perhaps we'll see you here at Lime Rock or some other historic festival in the future. I'm Bill Stevens. Thanks for joining us.